Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time, rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, my guest is Dyrk Ashton. He's an author, and he's the author of Paternus. This is a wicked tale. It's the epic battle between titans, giants, and gods, heaven and hell even, and the forces of light and darkness. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. This was an awesome book. Kept me up all night. I couldn't stop.
It always amazes me that people are reading it, letting it alone, really liking it.
So what does the Latin word for the title mean?
Well, it would actually be Paternus, but Paternus is the good Americanized version. And it means of the father, sort of.
Oh.
But without any connotations of God with a big G.
Right. No, it's really good fit. If you've read the book, then you really understand how that fits in. So tell me about your motivation to write this crazy tale.
I've always been a huge fan of mythology, and ever since I was a kid, and I read it all, from the Celtic, of course, the Greek and the Norse, everybody starts with that, but the Celtic and the Hindi mythologies and the Mesoamerican mythologies, Native American mythologies, from all over the world, African mythologies. I've always loved that stuff. And I just got this crazy idea to try to come up with a cosmology for the world where all those things could have actually happened. Those beings could have actually existed. And a lot of them were the same beings, just called different things in different parts of the world.
That's true. And you recently got a review by ℋead ℱairy.
I did, and that I'm still reeling from that. I just got that this week and redesigned the cover. Now there's going to be the blurb on the front, right above the title, from ℋead ℱairy, who wrote Girl with All the Gifts, which is coming out as a movie this fall, and he wrote the screenplay. He wrote the Hellblazer comics that the movie Constantine was based on, too.
Wow. So
yeah, and
great.
It's weird. I'm not sure how that actually happened. If you want, I can tell you how I got that blurb.
Absolutely, that was great. Can I just say what he said?
Yeah,
because it was the same thing that I was thinking. Really, it was like, wow, great ideas, vividly realized. Ashton's story is a crucible in which myths are melted and remade into thrilling effect. And that fits so great. It is thrilling. It's so thrilling that I couldn't put it down, and I was up all night.
Wow.
So how did it come about?
It's, when I started, looking into publishing the book, I worked on it for years, and I wrote it for myself. I wasn't really considering whether I would publish it or not, but enough people liked it, and I thought, why not get it out there? And but I had never done really much social media at all. So only about six or 7 months ago, I got on Twitter, and just started talking about stuff, and I would post a review, and I posted a review of The Girl with All the Gifts, which I loved. That's like one of my favorite movies book last year. And somehow Michael Carey got, which is his real name, saw it And then he saw me talking to somebody else who said they were going to go try to get a autographed copy of Girl with All the Gifts. And I said, oh, I would love to have one of those. But of course, she's in England and he's in England. And the next thing I know, I got a direct message from ℋead ℱairy saying Dyrk could be arranged. And he actually sent me a copy. He personally went and, I mean, this guy is big, you know,
Right.
but he actually signed for me and went to the post office and sent me a copy. And I asked him, you know, would it be presumptuous to trade? I've got my new book is just coming out. Would you like to have an ARC? And he was like, sure. So I sent it to him and I never thought anything more about it. And I mentioned something about blurbs a month or two later, and he responded to that and said, I'd be glad to. I just need to get to reading it. A month later, he sends me a direct message this week out of the blue saying he really liked it and he'd be happy to do the blurb, and did a blurb for me. You know, it's I've never met the guy.
That's exciting.
He has no reason to be so kind and gracious, but he is. The guy's a saint.
Yeah, but it's actually really good. You know, it's
Well,
an
thanks.
amazing book. Yeah. So what was the writing process and your research behind it? Because you were right on with a lot of characters.
Yeah. I'm a big researcher. I mean, I had to do a lot of it for my PhD. And so, you know, and I enjoy it and I enjoy the mythology. So writing this book was over 3.5 years. It took me to write this, to research. And I have hundreds and hundreds of pages of notes and these incredibly nerdy, huge spreadsheets with columns of, you know, human evolution and civilization evolution and natural, you know, the development of the planet, and then columns with the characters and when they were born and all, and when all these different things happened, and then these columns of, you know, mythological events and trying to assign times to those. So, I mean, there was a lot of that, and but I just started formulating the story, and it was originally actually 2 books, which I had some readers. I have a good group of beta readers. And I ended up combining it to 1 book and then rewrote that 1 book twice. So it was a long process, but I loved every minute of it, and I did it because I really liked it. And if it ever becomes not fun, you know, but it's just, I love it. I love the writing. I kind of need it, addicted to it. So yeah, I write every day for a few hours.
Wow.
And I've been doing that for almost 4 years now.
And book 2 is coming out soon?
And book 2 will actually be a year from book 1.
Okay.
There will be a year between the 2 books. But I'm looking at probably, instead of May 1st, June 1st of 2017.
2017. Wow.
Yeah, if I get it done quicker, I'll get it out quicker. And then the other one would be, the last one of the trilogy would be a year after that.
I can't wait that long. Hurry up.
Isn't that awful? You know, I only stumble
know.
across these books after like almost all of them are written, so I get to read them all at once. But yeah, there's going to be the traditional 1-year wait between these. But I'm not going to do a Patrick Rothfuss or G.R.R. Martin thing where it's, you know, like 5 or 7 years between books.
Oh, that's good.
I promise.
I can't wait to find out what the background is with Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, you found out a little bit more about them, and, you know, their characters were fully developed. You found out about their backgrounds and a lot of different things. And Zeke, there's like a missing link. So it's like, is it going to turn out really good? Is it going to turn out really bad?
He's more of an enigma in this. And I realize that I leave a lot of questions unanswered, but hopefully people like the characters enough. They're wanting to know more, well enough to read the second book. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I've got some surprises in store for Zeke, and he's going to have, you know, he and Fee, the two main human characters, are going to play a larger and larger role in the greater story. Right now, they're kind of all just caught up and being carried along, and they're, you know, I saw a review somebody posted this week that I thought was pretty awesome. I had never even thought of it this way, but it's like they're secondary characters almost, but they're the main characters, but they're kind of secondary characters, but they're us. You know,
Right.
there are connection to see and react to this crazy, this
I know,
insanity.
but it's so believable. And the way that you map it out and the way that things develop, it's really believable. Like, this could happen. Those bad guys could be these guys.
Well, and, you know, and I've always been, you know, I think my major, you know, inspiration, my major main excitement with this whole thing is that, you know, I'm one of those people that have always, and I've never grown out of it. You know, it's like, what if? What if in this world today, those things really did happen? You know, there really were these great wars that we read about in the mythologies, the Gigantomachy and the Titanomachy and all the great Hindu battles and the deluge, you know, the flood. You know, what if these things really happened and these beings really existed? You know, and what would they be like, you know, having lived for so long? And I realized things like that have been done, but I wanted to really get more into what would it be like, you know, what would they be like being that old, being that powerful, you know?
It's true.
In today's
And I
world.
love the dog.
Maul.
Yeah, Maul.
You know, he was a later addition in the writing of the book, but I found that he was really. I mean, I can't imagine the story without him now, without Edgar having that dog. You know.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, who's your favorite character? Do you have one?
I get asked that sometimes, and that's a real hard one. But you know, I didn't really think that. I thought he would be the hardest to write, but Fee's Uncle Edgar, I thought he would be. He ended up being really fun for me and a really interesting character and having a lot more personality than I ever really expected him to have in the writing process. And one of the most thrilling things about the writing process that I didn't really know, as this is my first novel. I wrote screenplays for quite a while. I've written a lot of short stories, and I tried to write a novel in high school, but I had never known this would happen. But I've talked to other authors, and they're like, yeah, it's when you're writing along and you're developing the characters and you're taking notes and you're building their backstories and you're building it into the story, and all of a sudden they're real. It's like you want them to say this and do this, but they're like, they turn out of the screen and look at you and say, I wouldn't do that. You know, I wouldn't say that. I would say this. And I would think this and I would do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, they take on a life of their own. And when Edgar did that, that was probably the biggest thrill, because I never really kind of expected him to. So maybe, it might sound weird, but maybe he's my favorite character, I guess. Even though he's not, you know, main character, he's there.
Right.
You know.
I like the White Watcher and the balance between the Terror Bird.
Yes, yeah, the Terror Bird is that. Yeah, he's hopefully one of those characters that people love to hate.
You know, how do you pronounce his name?
Zikokovac. It's yeah, it's a Mesoamerican word. It's from Mesoamerican mythology. So all that stuff that I kind of throw in there, like you know, that he was called the face gouger, you know, by the first men in specific mythologies. It's that stuff's all really does come out of the mythologies. I play with some things a little bit, obviously, but.
No, but I
But
looked
yeah,
him up.
Zico. It would be Zico is what they call him for short. Yeah.
What about the White Watcher? Fitton Mock Bakra?
I believe it's Fintan McBokra, or Fintan McBokra, or Finton. I actually am working. I just also this has been a huge week. I can't believe it. I got that blurb from Michael Carey. I got a blurb from Michael Easton, who's a critically acclaimed graphic novel artist, and he's also like on General Hospital.
Yay!
And he's an old friend of mine, but he's very busy, and I never expected him to read it, let alone do a blurb too. So I got that too. But I also have an audiobook in the works, which means I have to make sure that I get some correct pronunciations for, some good, they'll be Americanized, but I've got Hindi names, I've got old Celtic names, I've got Mesoamerican names, I've got Native American names, I've got all these different, and I need to make sure that I don't mess them up terribly like I probably will today. But for me, it's always been Fintan McBokra. And he's based on a mythological character as well. So yeah, I like him. I like him as well.
I liked all of them. I love the bull, the tanuki.
Astarion and Tanuki, yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah, those are fun. My Z's, I think, is how it's pronounced. But yeah, he and Zico, they'll be back. They'll be back, and we'll get to see how they develop and what happens with them. Yeah, everybody you see in the first one comes back, except for the ones that aren't all obviously dead. Yeah.
Well, you never know.
It's
kind of like it's not really like a soap opera, but it just reads so fast, and you're constantly reading to chase after the characters to keep up with them.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank
you. It's it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell pacing and things like that when you're writing. Whether things are it's really tough. Whether things are happening too fast, are they happening too slow? Do we need to back off and let these people let this sink in? Do we need to move on to the next thing? Am I giving away too much too early or not enough?
Oh,
right?
really? It was perfectly. It was well done.
It's one of the most difficult things in writing. Absolutely, for me anyway.
So
I think there are natural writers who've written a lot of books. Stephen King, of course, can just he just knows.
Right, but I think you nailed it. This is really good.
Thank you very much.
So what kind of
honestly, I it's hard to tell, and that's what beta readers are for, and readers are for, to kind of let you know those things. So.
Awesome. Can I be on that list for book
two?
Okay.
If you'd like to, absolutely.
Absolutely.
If you want to, I would love to have you on the beta read. That way you would see it well before anybody else does.
Yes. I'm happy to look at it at any stage.
I'm writing that down right now because I will forget if I don't.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So do you have any advice that you'd give young people that are getting into writing or that have crazy stories wrapped in their head and how to get it on paper?
You got to write. You just got to, for me, I hadn't been able to read a book for 10 years. I went back to school later in life to get my PhD, and that's just like a constant insanity until your dissertation is done, and then it's the full-time faculty job, and I didn't even have time to read anything for over 10 years, and then I got out of that and got entirely into teaching online, and I found out I had time to read, and I realized I was reading Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh, I could write. I have time. I couldn't write that, but I could Game of Thrones, but I could write. I actually can make the time. So I just started I pulled a bunch of crazy old ideas that I had and started combining some of them and then coming up with, it was a lot of just sitting and thinking and taking notes for the first 3-4 months, honestly. So, and then it was research and writing, and then going back to research and back to writing, and it's a constant back and forth. And I think the biggest advice, if you're trying to write a novel, is just write it, and then you can go back and make it pretty later. You can make the nice, you can make the sentences nice, you can make the wording nice, you can work on your descriptions, you can cut, you can expand. You could work on the flow, but you just got to get it out. Because I know that very early on, when I was a younger writer, I would write 5 pages and then go back and rewrite that 5 pages and then go back and rewrite that 5 pages. And that just gets, one, it gets demoralizing. 2, it's, you're just not getting a flow down. So, yeah, but you've got to just do it. You got to just do it.
What's the biggest difference between screenwriting and writing a novel?
That was a big jump. Now, I had written a lot of narrative prose, and then I wrote screenplays for years. And I think you have to be much more sparing in a screenplay. And you have to think in terms of visuals and sounds. You can't put anything on the page that won't either be seen on the screen or heard by the audience. You can't put that down there. You can't say, Bob walks into the room, and then say, Bob grew up in blah, 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 blah. You can't do that in a screenplay. Now, you can in a book, but you learn to be sparing with those things. And I can't, I'm a filmmaker, have always, was a filmmaker for years, educated and worked professionally in the film business for a long time, lived in Los Angeles for almost 6 years. And so I never did it consciously, but I think that a lot of the writing of this book comes from a visual perspective, visual and auditory perspective. But then I got to talk about what things smell like, and I got to do internal monologues. I got to hear the thoughts and have a little background of the characters. So it was freeing in a lot of ways, but the more free you are and the less rules you have. There are a lot more rules in screenplay writing. The less rules you have, the more like, I got to make a decision. I could do anything I want. I could do absolutely anything I want. I just have to figure out what it is and what confines I want to keep it in.
Wow. Well, you did do excellent descriptions. It really brought the reader right into that place. You could visualize it. You could smell it. You could just imagine that it was really happening.
Well, thank you.
It felt real. It was great.
And that's, and I'm sure you noticed I wrote it, I made the choice to write it in present tense. So as if it's happening right now.
And I think that's what puts the reader in.
You think, and I had been doing that, and then I went to the Confusion conference in Michigan last January, and they had a thing, and they were actually talking about they want more present tense. That audiences, the readerships seem to want more present tense, even though a lot of people still don't like it. One of my copy editors really wanted me to change it to past tense, but I just wouldn't do it. And also said that, you can head hop. They call it head hopping a little bit, much more than you used to be able to, because I bounce between perspectives of different characters. And most readers, I think, don't even notice. The ones that do say it's fine or like it. But there are some people that are still, I wouldn't say old-fashioned, but still are like, no, I want to stay with one particular character. But I find that limiting, So I wanted to be able to get into the heads of all of the characters if I could.
Oh, what you did. So before we wrap up, can you tell us your favorite book of all time, and why it influenced you?
Wow. It's very cliche, but it still has to be The Lord of the Rings. I read that probably 4 times before I was out of high school, you know, all of it. But I think in that time, I also read a lot of Roger Zelazny. And Zelazny is very different from Tolkien. And I think my favorite is Creatures of Light and Darkness. He's got a way of describing things and just kind of, you know, really getting right to it that just blows me away. And his imagination and his description of things are just amazing. And he's got a great, sharp, kind of cynical sense of humor. But that and Once in a Lonesome October, or A Day in Lonesome October. Crap, I can't think of it exactly. But it's got Lonesome October in it. So Tolkien and Zelazny, I would say, though I love everything and I read all the time. So,
Oh, that's great.
but yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing so much about what you do with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, I can't believe I'm on your show. This is a great thrill for me.
Oh, thank you. Where can people find out more information about you?
I have a website. It's paternusbooks.com, all one word. It's just the title of the book with books, so paternusbooks.com. I have an extended bio there, plus a lot of more information about the book and a calendar. And I don't really blog much, but I post book reviews up there and other information. But there's, you know, also Amazon has a lot more information about it. And, you know, people are constantly sending me pictures and weird links to stuff they find about me online. So they'll just go into Google and they'll type in Dyrk Ashton and a bunch of weird stuff comes up. It's like, how can this guy be, you know, do all this weird crap in one lifetime? I don't know.
I think it's great, and I definitely think it adds to your style of writing and the amazing books that you're going to produce, because I can't wait for number 2. Is it gonna, how
Well,
many
you're
books
on the
are going to
beta
be?
reader list, so
How-
you'll get it sooner than everybody else.
Excellent. How many are there in this series, do you think?
There will be, I believe it's going to be 3, a trilogy.
A trilogy?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want a really great book to read, Patronus, it's amazing. We'll see you soon.